This is part 2 of my Milgauss review and how it fits in with my collection and some comparisons. I did an overview of the Milgauss in my last video, and I mentioned all the positives, but I forgot to mention a couple negatives. It is a very unique and underappreciated watch compared to the Submariner or GMT, but it still has that substantial presence on the wrist. And it's also not as expensive as the Yachtmaster or Sea Dweller. But as far as negatives, I only have 2 for now. I wish they would have shaved off a millimeter on the diameter and make it a 39 millimeter. It is a little bit large on my wrist. And the sapphire crystal also seems especially prone to glare compared to some of my other watches. And it looks sometimes hazy at certain angles, so it's a little more difficult to appreciate the dial fully. I wonder if they could add anti-reflective coating to the crystal. But here's how it fits into my collection. It adds green to my collection and also some more blue. I already have black bezel, blue, red and blue, and a platinum bezel, and I have black dial, silver dial, blue dial, and rhodium dial. As far as case design, I think it's similar to the Oyster Perpetual, except it's thicker and heavier, but similar shape. It curves down slightly at the edges, and the lugs are similar shape. It's also somewhat similar to the Yachtmaster case. I think the Yachtmaster is even more curvier, and the lugs seem to be a little bit more tapered also. It's very different from the GMT case, which is much flatter, but about the same thickness. The bracelet is very similar to the new Datejust bracelet. It has the same polished center links, same clasp, and same width, and I think the circumference of the bracelet is the same as the Datejust also. As far as the size of the case, I think it compares very similarly to the Yachtmaster and Pepsi GMT. It does look slightly smaller than the Batman GMT to my eye, and it looks much smaller than the Sea Dweller, which is 43 millimeters. And it is, of course, it's bigger than the 36 millimeter Oyster Perpetual. And the case thickness, as I said, it's similar to the GMT in thickness, but it's thicker than the Oyster Perpetual, but much thinner than the Sea Dweller 43, and also much lighter. I can always tell when I have the Sea Dweller on. You always know it's on your wrist, but with the Milgauss, sometimes it disappears and I forget that I'm wearing it, just like my Oyster Perpetual. I'm going to compare the color of the dial with the blue Datejust dial so you can see just how different the shades of blue are. The Z Blue is a lighter blue, but also has shades of green in it. And the Datejust is a deep, flat blue, which is darker and changes color into a more deep blue with the lower light situations. They're both sunburst patterns, but they're very different in character. As I said before, I think I want to try to reduce my collection and have all my ceramic modern Rolexes fit within this one box, and keep my pre-ceramic, pre-modern Rolexes in a separate box. Now, everyone has their own number, but I think for me 10 or 12 watches total is the right number. I think going over 13 or 14 is just too much for me. So I'm thinking about letting go a couple of these pieces. So I think 3 of my favorites are these 3 watches, so I don't have any plans on letting these go right now. They're difficult to get and I really enjoy wearing them. This was one of my latest watches, so I'm definitely keeping that one. So I'm thinking about either letting go this blue Datejust or the Oyster Perpetual 36mm, or the Yachtmaster with the rhodium dial. I just don't seem to wear this watch very frequently. It just seems very dressy and more formal than any of my other watches. And I do like the Jubilee bracelet, but I don't really prefer the hidden clasp on this type of Jubilee bracelet. It is nice to have a blue dial, but for some reason I don't seem to wear this very much. Same reasons for here. This is a very simple watch and minimal watch. It's not as exciting to wear as some of my other watches, but it does feel very comfortable on the wrist and feels very solid. So I keep going back and forth about this watch, whether I want to keep it or let it go. I think I'll put this away for a while and see if I really miss it. I bought this one on the gray market. I really do like the fit and the size of this. It fits very similar to a Daytona. And even though it's 40mm, it's much more comfortable than the Batman GMT. So for right now, I think I'll put the Milgauss in this slot for now, and maybe put these 2 away for a while and decide if I want to let one of these go. So this is how the box will look for now. I'm trying to keep a balanced collection and keep a variety of colors and sizes also. For these watches, these 2 were purchased on the gray market and the rest were purchased from the authorized dealer. I made a separate video about buying a gray dealer versus AD. I still have my frustrations with the AD process, but I'm starting to appreciate the benefits of buying new. I like the experience of picking it up from the store, knowing exactly where it's been, and being the only owner and not having someone else's name on the card. So it is a positive for me to have certain watches directly from the authorized dealer. But these 2 watches are almost impossible to get right now, so I'm definitely not going to sell these 2 watches right now. So what's next for the collection? I'm still asking for the ceramic Daytona from the authorized dealer. My buying history is building up, so I don't think it's going to be totally impossible to get that, but I think I'm going to have to wait probably at least another year or so before I get a chance to have that. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments, please leave them below.